Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday. It is Literary Archaeology Day. This is the day that, well, after I say this is the day, I have to say this is the day that the Lord hath made. And also, this is the day that we dig into old writings. It's where we dig into old writings and things like that to discover truth that was known to us not that long ago. Stuff that was absolutely accepted in the Western world as truth. We live in a day and age where, Supreme Court Justice nominees, when she was, can't answer the question. Simple questions. Definition of a woman. Definition of a man. Like, it's all fluid now. And it's a lie. It's full of lies. And it's not just that the elites, the overlords, globalists, whatever name you want to call the people who are pulling the strings, they're not just lying to us, they're hiding truth too. And we often forget that. We often forget when we're busy trying to call out the lies and stuff, which there's plenty of that to do. We often forget, like, they've hidden lots of things from us. And it's not hard for them to do with all the distraction. So one of the things they've hidden is the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. They changed them, for one thing, from how they were originally published in 1812 and 1815. They changed them later on in the 20th century, made them a little bit more modern. And then Disney, later on, got a hold of them. And I'm talking about when Disney made their first Snow White, went ahead and made them even more modern. And why? What did they not want you to know? What are some truths they did not want children to be raised with? And how different would things be if little boys had been raised to understand that little girls are not sugar and spice and all things nice? How different would it be if we were raised to understand that witches are real and that beware of stepmothers? It's amazing how many of the villains in these fairy tales have been women. So anyway, we read these together. I don't read them ahead of time, and we go in the order of the book. If I've read one before with you guys from it's not back there now because Christmas decorations are up, but I have another book that's 20th century publication, and, well, it's just too woke. So we're going with this one. It's just supposed to be the original tales, translated and edited by Jack Zipes. So, you got to find as many original books as we can in this day and age. We are literally living in 1984. The book, we don't really know anything except what they tell us. And they don't have our best interest at heart, if they even have one. So today, we start with the Three Ravens. Then we're skipping Little Red Cap because we've read that one. And we will go to, I have it marked. Then we will go to Death and the Goose Boy, which is a real short one, followed by The Singing Bone, which is another little bit of a short one. So we've got our main one and two bonus. And I have no idea what they're about. So exciting and a little scary. Grimm Brothers. Whew. All right. Once upon a time, there was a mother who had 3 little sons who were playing cards one day next to the church. And when the sermon was finished, their mother returned home and saw what they had been doing. So she cursed her godless children, and they were immediately turned into 3 coal-black ravens and flew away. Dang. Okay. The three brothers, however, had a little sister who loved them with all her heart. And she grieved so much about their banishment that she no longer had any peace of mind and finally set out to look for them. The only thing that she took with her for the long, long journey was a little stool on which she rested when she became too tired, and she ate nothing the entire time but wild apples and pears. She's a little girl sacrificing because she loves her brothers. Such a wonderful thing to teach a little girl, because you should teach little girls what love is. Don't assume they're going to know. Unfortunately, she couldn't find the three ravens, but one time, when they had flown over her head, one of them had dropped a ring, and when she picked it up, she recognized it as the ring that she had given to her youngest brother one time as a present. Oh. The sister continued her journey, and she went so far, so very far, until she came to the end of the world and went to the sun, which was, however, much too hot, and ate small children. So after that, she went to the moon, which was, however, much too cold and also mean. And when it saw her, it said, I smell human flesh. So the maiden left there quickly and went to the stars, which were good to her, and each one sat on a little stool. And the morning star stood up and gave her a gammy leg to help her open the gate to the glass mountain. Okay, you guys, sometimes with Grimm fairy tales, we're just completely on a trip. Okay, so we're with the stars and each one is sitting on a stool. Just have to recap so I can wrap my mind around this. And they gave her a gammy leg so she could open the gate to the glass mountain. Okay. All right. I think I have all that straight. You guys have all that straight? If you don't have this little leg, you won't be able to climb the glass mountain. It's on the glass mountain that you'll find your brothers. It's like when we say, you'd go to the ends of the earth to find this, or go to the ends of the earth. I remember that being a phrase, like to express how much you would give or how much you would sacrifice or how hard you would work. I would go to the ends of the earth for this person. This is all describing love. And I think it's something we have to actually teach children. Nowadays, and for the last several generations, people have just seemed to raise their children like their children will just know or find it themselves. And, well, I think we can see how that's working out. Grimm Brothers understood we have to keep these lessons alive. And humans, we understand things through narrative. That's why they propagandize us through narratives all the time. Movies, for example. Okay. So the sister took the gammy leg, wrapped it in some cloth, and continued her journey until she came to the glass mountain. However, the gate was closed, and just as she wanted to take the gammy leg from the cloth, she discovered that she had lost it along the way. Since she didn't know what to do, she took a knife. Good girl, carrying a knife. Sliced off her pinky stuck it into the lock, and opened the gate. Then a little dwarf came toward her and said, "My child, what are you looking for here?" "I'm looking for my brothers, the 3 ravens." "The Lord ravens are not at home," said the little dwarf. "If you want to wait, then come in." And the little dwarf brought 3 little plates and 3 little mugs, and the sister ate a bit from each little plate and drank a sip from each mug. And she let the little ring fall into the last mug. All of a sudden, a whizzing and a buzzing could be heard in the air. "The Lord ravens are flying back home," said the little dwarf. And the ravens began to speak one after the other. "Who has eaten from my little plate? Who has drunk from my little mug?" As the 3rd raven, however, came to his little mug, he found the ring and saw clearly that their little sister had arrived. They recognized her because of the ring, and they were all saved and transformed and were happy to go home. Aw, the little girl is the hero. The mother is the villain. We don't know where the dad is. Every time that I can remember, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, in these fairy tales, whenever the mother, stepmother, old hag out in the woods, whatever, bitch, does something, there's not a man around. The father isn't around when the stepmother is doing something. Hansel and Gretel, he was, and he went along with it, and that was his sin. Very reminiscent of a time back, almost some would say at the very beginning of time, as we know it, in a garden where the man's sin was to acquiesce. And that seems to be a theme. And here we don't even know that there is one. They didn't describe her as a widow, but she just got mad and turned them into ravens. That is not the way to handle a situation. I think we can all agree. And the little girl loved her brothers so much. She went to the ends of the earth. She sacrificed her pinky. She cut off her pinky. Not only did that hurt, but now she doesn't have a pinky. But she saved her brothers. It's really sweet. It's really sweet. But you have to teach. You have to teach. I know that you have to teach girls to love. I don't know about boys. I have heard from other parents, that the little boys are more loving and more cuddly and things like that. You ask any mom who has boys and girls that the boys are much more affectionate. Just saying. We're different. And therefore, we have different strengths and weaknesses. I think you have to teach a little girl to love. I don't think you guys will disagree because of your experiences with grown-up little girls, which are women, right? You have to remember, we start when we're younger, and children need to be trained, and they need to be trained in things that I think that we just take for granted are just going to be natural, and they're not. So that was nice. The next story in this book is Little Red Cap, which is Little Red Riding Hood, and we've done that one. That was actually the first one that we did, I think. So the next one is Death and the Goose Boy. What will we uncover here? What will we dig up? You never know in literary archaeology. Could be a diamond, could be fossilized excrement. Probably not in here. Oh goodness. Okay, Death and the Goose Boy. Let's go. A poor goose boy went walking along the bank of a large, turbulent river while looking after a flock of white geese. When he saw Death come toward him across the water, the boy asked him where he had come from and where he intended to go. Death answered that he had come from the water and wanted to leave the world. The poor Goose Boy asked Death once more how one could actually leave the world. Death said that one must go across the river into the new world that lay on the other side. The Goose Boy said he was tired of this life and asked Death to take him across the water. Death said it was not time yet, for there were things Death still had to do. A little dark. Not far from there lived a greedy man who at night kept trying to gather together more and more money and possessions. Death led him to the large river and pushed him in. Since he couldn't swim, he sank to the bottom before he could reach the bank. His cats and dogs that had run after him were also drowned. A few days later, Death returned to the Goose Boy and found him singing cheerfully. "Do you want to come with me?" he asked. The Goose Boy went willingly and crossed the river with his white geese, which were all turned into white sheep. The Goose Boy looked at the beautiful country and heard that the shepherds of places like that became kings. And as he was looking around, the arch shepherds, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, came toward him, put a royal crown on his head, and led him to the castle of the shepherds, where he can still be found. So I'm thinking Death is this, shame on me, thinking Death is this enemy. Shame on me. It's not when you know where you're going and who you're going to be with. And he was tired of the world. He wanted to leave it. It wasn't time. And his life got better. He didn't know that. He was going to leave. He would have gone across. But his life got better. He was singing cheerfully. You don't cross the river before it's time. It's not our choice to make. We don't know what else we still have to do. And we take solace in knowing that when it is time to cross that river, that there will be peace and comfort and no more pain. But not until it's time. Wow. You have to teach children these things because life is going to come at them. And if they're read these things and taught these things, these lessons, it's not going to make life necessarily easier, but it does give you the skills and the knowledge to get through the things that life throws at us. And again, I can point to the generations that, some Gen X, more millennials, and tons of Gen Z, those are the people in their 20s and late teens. The coping skills, the communication skills just aren't there by and large. And so what has been missing? Truth. At the end of the day, truth. Truth has been missing. And it has been a giant disservice And I think for me, that's why it's so comforting to read this and to cross out. I don't know. It's just comforting to be like, yes, we did know this. We did know this because inside I know these things. My insides know these things to be true. I was very blessed. There were a lot of things that I would go back and change or what have you, but I was very blessed to learn some of these truths at a young age. I did. I had a good dad, as you guys say. You guys have said, sounds like you had a good dad. Well, I did. And, it took the time to sit down and talk to me and explain things. And in this day and age, people will be like, oh, the child's too young to hear about such things. There are ways you teach it. And Grimm Brothers understood that. That's why fairy tales like these, the best way to teach these lessons. Because you can teach the lessons in an abstract way that the child can understand, feel, internalize, and know without getting traumatized with it, thinking about it in actual reality. It's brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so the last one we have here is the singing bone. Here we go. A wild boar was causing great damage throughout the entire country. Nobody dared to go into the forest where the beast was running around. Whoever had been so bold as to enter the forest and to try to kill the boar had been ripped apart by its tusks. So the king proclaimed that whoever killed the boar would receive his only daughter for a wife. Because finding a wife used to be finding a good thing. And as you guys have pointed out, it's not just the wife. When you marry the king's daughter, now you are inheriting the kingdom. So it's not just a lady. It's all the stuff that came with her. So we're saying she was bringing things to the table. Now 3 brothers were living in the realm. The eldest was wily and smart. The second, somewhat intelligent. And the third and youngest, naive and dumb. They thought of winning the princess and wanted to look for the wild boar and kill it. The 2 older brothers went out together, while the youngest proceeded alone. As this young man entered the forest, a little man appeared before him. He was holding a heavy lance in his hand and said, "Take this lance and attack the wild boar without fear. You'll easily be able to kill it." And this is what happened. He struck the boar with the black lance so that it fell to the ground. Then he cheerfully lifted the beast on his shoulders and carried it toward home. Along the way, he passed by a house in which his older brothers were enjoying themselves by drinking wine. When they saw him carrying the boar on his back, they called out to him, "Come inside and have a drink with us. You must be tired." But they said he was naive and dumb, so I think he's going to fall for it. This would be where I would explain to the children I was reading this to that, okay, so they said that the youngest one was naive and dumb. What do you think he will do? Do you think that the other brothers are just inviting him for a drink, or are they trying to trick him? The innocent bumpkin didn't suspect anything evil. So he went inside and told them how he had killed the boar with the lance and was delighted about his good fortune. In the evening, they headed toward their home together, and the two older brothers made a plan to take their brother's life. You didn't have to go that far. Goodness. They let him go ahead of them, and as they approached the city and were on a bridge, they attacked him and beat him to death. Great. Then they buried him deep under the bridge. Afterward, the eldest took the boar, carried it to the king, and received the princess for his wife. It took many years before this deed was revealed. And it happened when a shepherd was crossing the bridge and noticed a little bone lying down below in the sand. Since it was so clean and snow white, he wanted to make a mouthpiece for his horn out of it. So he went down and picked it up. Later, he made it into a mouthpiece. And as he set it into the horn and wanted to blow the little bone began to sing on its own accord. Dear shepherd, blowing on my bone, hear my song, for I want you to know my brothers killed me years ago. They buried me by the brook that flows and carried off the dead wild boar and won the king's lone daughter. It probably rhymes in German, so we'll imagine that it does. The shepherd immediately took the horn and brought it to the king. And once again, it sang the same words. When the king heard the song, he had the ground beneath the bridge dug up, and the skeleton of the dead brother was revealed. The two evil brothers confessed their crime and were thrown into the water. People really need to learn to swim back then. Thrown into the water. However, the bone of the murdered brother was laid to rest in a beautiful grave in the churchyard. The end. Wow. Okay. Truth. The truth always comes out. Very sort of Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. The truth comes out. That was more guilt that revealed that guy. But yeah, the truth came out. They did a horrible deed. That was their brother. And how awful to betray him that way, trick him that way. But the truth came out. I thought it was going to do Grimm Brothers and be like, and then he came to life, you know. But some things are final. It's the Grimm Brothers tales very much like to have whatever sin was committed is revealed and punishment happens. A form of justice, one might say. Justice is something that is confusing, to say the least, in the West nowadays. When you don't base what's right on what God says is right, and it's just what man says is right, it's going to get real fuzzy. And that's where we are today. Because we don't actively teach where truth comes from, what it means, its importance. Of course we don't. And more people would seek it. I really like today's 3 tales. Truth, love. Real love, what it is, what it means. Real love is unconditional and sacrificial. But I know that it at least must be taught to little girls. You guys can tell me in the comments how you think, if it needs to be taught to little boys or if it's just written on your hearts. I'm not so sure. I'd love to think it was written on our hearts, but that's not the evidence. I don't see that as evidence. I see it like we need some instruction and constraints. And by we, I mean women. Raymond in the chat last night was calling us the feral sex because, it's hard with YouTube. Like, you can't really say things. Like, you mustn't criticize women ever. You mustn't do that. Heavens to Betsy, we can't criticize women. Should be able to criticize everybody, everything, just so we can get to the truth. But they don't want that. That's why they hide things like Grimm Brothers fairy tales. So thank you guys for joining me today. Sunday is so special. I love our literary archaeology. I love it. And I appreciate that you guys do too. This is one way I feed my soul. I smile a lot on Sundays because of this that we share together. It's never the biggest video because we're reading fairy tales, it doesn't have the pizzazz of, everything else in this day and age. It's not sexy. It's not, anything like that. But I think it's incredibly valuable. And I think the absence of it shows us how incredibly valuable it is. So, little Lola, my producer, CEO, boss, director, all of that, she is taking a nap. But she would want you to please like the video. Whenever she distracts me, that's why I'm saying that. It reminds me to ask you guys to like the video, especially because it's the fairy tale and I want it to do well. When people like the video or interact with it in some way, it always helps. The algorithm helps for other people to see it because they might not know how valuable literary archaeology is until they start digging. So thank you guys. So please take time today, especially today, to feed your souls, protect your peace. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.